Hello, I'm Kristy Ella. Today I'm going to share a story about a cookie jar and a young girl named Jill and the weight she carried from childhood. You know, it's funny how certain moments from childhood, small, seemingly insignificant moments, can root themselves so deeply in who we become. We just wake up one day as adults and realize we've been organizing our entire lives around something that happened when we were 7 years old. This story is about a special family ritual, how a wall was innocently built. Let's listen to Jill tell her story.
I was 7 years old. The summer my grandmother's cookie jar disappeared. It wasn't just any cookie jar. It was this beautiful ceramic thing, hand-painted cow with tiny purple flowers that sat on her kitchen counter like a small throne. It had belonged to her mother. My grandmother, Nana Rose we called her, kept it filled with ginger snaps that she made herself, and the rule was simple. 1 cookie after lunch, 1 after dinner. No asking, no sneaking. The honor system, she called it. I loved that jar more than I loved the cookies, if I'm honest. I loved the weight of the lid in my hands, the soft clink when I set it back down. I loved that Nana trusted me with it. The summer I turned 7, my cousin Danny came to stay with us for 2 weeks while his parents sorted out what everybody whispered about but nobody explained. Danny was 10, and he had this way of making me feel younger than I was, like I was a baby he had to put up with. One afternoon, when the adults were all outside fussing over the garden, Danny dared me to take 3 cookies instead of 1. "Nana won't notice," he said, grinning. "She's old. Old people forget things." I said no. I said it was against the rules. He called me a baby. So I took 3 cookies. We ate them fast, giggling in the pantry like bandits. And when I went to put the lid back on the jar, my hands were shaking, maybe from the sugar, maybe from the guilt, and I fumbled it. The jar slipped. It hit the edge of the counter and shattered across the linoleum floor in a spray of ceramic violets and ginger snap crumbs. I froze. Danny ran. When Nana came in and found me standing there in the wreckage, she didn't yell. She just looked at the pieces scattered around my feet, and then she looked at me with these soft, sad eyes and asked, "What happened, sweetheart?" I should have told her the truth. I should have said, "Danny dared me, and I was stupid, and I'm so sorry." Instead, I said, "It just fell. I was putting it back, and it just fell." She studied my face for a long moment. Then she nodded, kissed my forehead, and swept up the pieces herself. The next day, there was a new cookie jar with ginger snaps in it. It was plain, and it was yellow. Life rolled on as if nothing had changed. But I had changed, and the feel of the jar had changed. It was now just a plain yellow jar. Danny still tried to get me to take extra cookies, and told me if I told on him he would hate me. The ginger snaps no longer tasted the same. I just wanted Danny to go home. Something changed in me that day. Something small and poisonous took root. I didn't understand it at the time, but I knew something had changed. I started watching Nana's face whenever I was around her, searching for signs that she knew, that she'd figured it out, that the trust was gone. She never acted any differently. I thought maybe she had forgotten. As Danny had told me that old people forget things, she still let me help in the kitchen, still called me her sweet girl, still slipped me an extra cookie when no one was looking. But I couldn't feel it anymore. I didn't understand how I felt. I was just a child. I didn't understand how breaking the cookie jar would change my whole life.
Chapter 2.
The feeling followed me and the lie became a pattern. I became very good at managing what people saw. In school, when I struggled in math, I hid my failing grades until it was too late to fix them. In high school, I told my parents the teacher had it out for me rather than admit I'd been too embarrassed to ask for help. When I got into college, a small state school, not the university my parents had hoped for, I let them believe I'd chosen it, that it was about wanting to stay close to home, not about my grades not being good enough. In my first dating relationships, when my boyfriend asked if something was wrong, I'd smile and say, "I'm fine," even when I was crumbling inside. I was terrified that if I showed him the messy, uncertain parts of me, he'd see what I'd always suspected, that I wasn't worth the trouble. In my first serious relationship, I had become a polished expert at, "I'm fine." Mark would ask if something was wrong, and I'd smile and say everything was great even when I was struggling, even when I needed him. I knew if I showed him the real me, he'd see what I'd always suspected, that I was a liar. We dated for almost 2 years. He proposed on a beach in Hawaii, and I said yes even though something in me whispered that I was pretending, that he didn't really know me, that I'd gotten so good at managing what people saw that I'd disappeared. Three months before the wedding, I broke it off. I told him I wasn't ready, that I needed time. I was too young. But the truth I couldn't say out loud, was that I couldn't marry someone who only loved a version of me I'd invented. He was devastated. My parents were confused. My friends all loved him and thought I was self-sabotaging. Maybe I was. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if I went through with it, I'd spend the rest of my life standing in the wreckage of that ceramic jar, pretending everything just fell on its own. I moved to Alberta after that, started over, told myself I'd be different this time. But the wall came with me. The one I'd built between who I really was and who I let people see. It kept me safe. It kept me alone. For years I told myself it didn't matter. It was just a cookie jar, an accident, a small childhood mistake. But the thing about lies, even small ones, even ones born from fear and shame, is that they teach you something about yourself. They teach you that the truth is dangerous, that love is conditional, that if people really knew you, they might not look at you the same way. I remembered how Danny seemed to stay with us a long time, and he constantly seemed to get me in trouble. I had wanted him to leave. I didn't like him. He blamed everything on me. I was scared of him, so I let him. I didn't understand what was happening at the time, but reflecting back, I knew he hurt me. I carried the weight of that broken jar into every friendship, every job, every love. I became an expert at seeming fine, at being low maintenance, at never needing too much or asking too many questions or taking up too much space. The honor system, I'd learned, was a trap. If you were trusted and you failed, the shame was unbearable. Better not to be trusted at all. Stay tuned for Chapter 3.
Chapter 3, The Letter.
Nana Rose died when I was 22. At the funeral, my aunt pulled me aside and handed me a small wooden box. "She wanted you to have this," she said. Inside, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, were pieces of the violet jar. Not all of them. Some were too small, I suppose, lost to the dustpan all those years ago. But the bigger shards were there, and Nana had kept them. Tucked beneath them was a note in her shaky handwriting, for Jill. "In case you ever want to put the pieces back together, I always knew it wasn't an accident. I also always knew you were sorry. Love isn't a jar, sweetheart. It doesn't break that easy." I sat in my car in the funeral home parking lot and cried for hours. She'd known. All along she'd known, and she'd loved me anyway. It took me a long time after that to understand what she was really telling me. The cookie jar was never the point. The point was that I'd spent 14 years believing that one mistake, one lie had defined me, that I was fundamentally untrustworthy, fundamentally too much or not enough. I started small. I told all my new dates about a fear I'd been carrying. I admitted to a friend that I was struggling. I asked for help at work instead of pretending I had it all figured out. Each time I braced for the shattering, for the look in their eyes that said, "Oh, so this is who you really are," it never came. What came instead was relief, connection, the quiet, ordinary magic of being known and loved anyway. I still have those pieces of the cookie jar. I never did glue them back together. It felt wrong somehow to pretend it could be what it was. But I keep them on a shelf in my study, a reminder that broken things can still be beautiful. That shame only has the power we give it. That love, real love, sees the cracks and stays anyway. Nana Rose knew that. Why didn't she help me with this? I was a child. Why didn't you let me know it was okay? I know it now. I hope this story resonates with you and helps you to let go of the cookie jar.
If you're still with me, thank you for listening. I'm Kristy Ella. I wonder sometimes how many of us are walking around carrying our own version of that jar. Some small moment of shame or failure that we've let define us. Some lie we told to others, to ourselves, that became the foundation for how we move through the world. Maybe you learned to make yourself smaller. Maybe you learned not to need anyone. Maybe you learned that the real you was too much, too messy, too broken to be loved. I want you to know you're not alone in that, and more importantly, it isn't true. The people who love us, truly love us, they can hold our whole story, the beautiful parts and the broken parts. They don't need us to be perfect. They just need us to be real. So here's my question for you. If you're willing to sit with it, what are you still carrying? What jar are you still afraid to break? Do you have a Danny in your life? And what might it feel like to finally tell the truth about it? Drop a comment if this story resonated with you or if you've got your own jar to share. Sometimes just saying it out loud is the first step toward putting down the weight. Until next time, I am Kristy Ella. Please like and subscribe for more stories.